Ladies and gentlemen, this is MTG Traders. My name is Tyrant, and this is Standard Simic Merfolk. Alright guys, so I did a ton of testing and I finally came to a decent enough build that I think is actually going to be pretty fun in Standard. It's not going to be competitive Pro Tour level, but I think it's going to be fun. It's going to be fairly budget, and I think it can definitely get under some decks that are not expecting it, especially. This is Simic Merfolk. But before I get into the video, make sure you hit the like button and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, and hit the little bell to make sure you know when we upload a video or when we stream on this channel. So let's get right into it. Moving on to the 1 mana slot, we have 4 Kumina Speaker. This is a 1 mana 1/1 that actually gets +1/+1 if you control an island or another merfolk on the field. The Speaker is great tempo, great at getting in early, and it can be great after turn 2, especially if there is a Metallic Mimic on board as well. So as we get into the deck, you'll kind of realize that the deck is kind of centered around getting +1/+1 counters and making all of your creatures unblockable and then swinging in for a win. But we want to make sure here that we have a good tempo player, a good turn 1 play that can get in and potentially grow larger the following turn. But moving on from the Speaker, we have 4 Merfolk Branchwalker. This is a 2 mana 2/1 that actually explores when it enters the battlefield. Exploring again is a super powerful mechanic. It's almost a card draw basically, or card filtering. So it explores, which means it looks at the top card of your library. If it's a land, it puts it into your hand. If it's not a land, you can either keep it on top of your deck or put it into the graveyard. So Branchwalker either comes out as a 2/1 that gives you a land, or a 3/2 for 2, which is actually pretty decent. And again, keep in mind it does give it a +1/+1 counter, so that's going to come in mind later in the match when we have somebody like Herald of the Secret Streams out on the field. But moving on from the Branchwalker, we have another good tempo piece. This is River Sneak, a 2 mana 1/1. River Sneak can't be blocked, and whenever another Merfolk enters the battlefield under your control, River Sneak gets +1/+1 until end of turn. So one of the best things about this card is that it's unblockable, so it can get in turn over turn, but also it has that pump ability, so if you have the ability to cast 2 or 3, it's coming in for 2, 3, 4 damage possibly, as well as the rest of the deck doing different things to give +1/+1 counters to Merfolk. This is a fantastic tempo bomb. But moving on from the Sink, we have, of course, the 4 Metallic Mimic. Could not leave them out of this tribal deck, and the Mimic actually does more than double duty. Instead of just making your board larger, it gives them +1/+1 counters, which is incredibly important for Herald of Secret Streams. Think about the Speaker here. If we have the Speaker out first, we have the Metallic Mimic, or we can play the Metallic Mimic out first, and then a Speaker. That's a 3/3 that is actually on the board, because Metallic Mimic is also a Merfolk, so a 3/3 for 1 is not bad either. Again, if you guys looked at my Rakdos Pirates deck on the channel, you'll notice that there's this kind of a similar synergy with that Rigging Runner. It's a 1 mana 1/1 with First Strike that gets a +1/+1 counter if you attack with the creature this turn. If Mimic comes out first and then the Rigging Runner is out later, then it's a 3/3 First Striker instead of a 2/2 First Striker. But either way, Metallic Mimic works swimmingly, literally, in every kind of Merfolk deck, and I think this is going to be great in this Standard deck here. But that is it for 2 drops. Let's move on to 3 drops. We have 2 Kapala Warden of Waves. This is a 3 mana 2/2 that makes spells your opponents cast that target a Merfolk you control cost 2 colorless more to cast. Abilities your opponents activate that target a Merfolk you control cost 2 more to activate. This is a great creature at shutting down any kind of like Walking Ballista strategy, any kind of quick removal strategy. It's a great thing to make sure that they're actually spending extra mana to get the creatures that you have out of the way. Is this a card that will be going into the sideboard in game 2? Possibly. It really depends on what kind of setup you're doing, but a 3/3 for 3 if a Metallic Mimic is out is not terrible, and it also makes, of course, your entire board have pseudo protection from spot removal, so I think that's incredibly important too. I think Kapala is actually a little bit more important in the modern format, as I noted in the modern Merfolk deck that you guys need to definitely check out because we're giving it away on the channel. Just look on it on the channel here. I'll link it below as well. But Kapala in Standard is in a slower format, so it's not going to be as effective, but I think Kapala is still amazing, especially in the Merfolk deck. But moving on from Kapala, we have 3 Vineshaper Mystic. This is a 3 mana 1/3 that when it enters the battlefield, put a +1/+1 counter on each of up to 2 Merfolk you control. So talk about other cards that are coming in on the turn 1, turn 2. Vineshaper Mystic makes them larger, as well as having a large butt herself, being a 1/3. You can also put 1 +1/+1 counter on it itself, so it is a 2/4 for 3 as well, so that's really good too. And again, one of the winning conditions here is either going big or going unblockable with Herald of Secret Streams, so Vineshaper Mystic helps us get there with that. And of course, one of the win conditions of the deck is Herald of Secret Streams. This is a 4 mana 2/3. We only have 3 in the deck. Putting 4 in the deck was just a little bit too much for my liking, but it is creatures you control with +1/+1 counters on them can't be blocked. So I think we have 13 cards in the entire deck that give things +1/+1 counters, so it's a pretty decent and recurring ability that's going to have a good effectiveness on our strategy. So Herald of Secret Streams is a 2/3 for 4 that's not great, but a 2/3 for 4 that can actually act as a spell for us to make sure that we have our creatures going in for unblockable is quite good. And at the top end of our curve, we have 2 Virtuous Gearhulk. This is a 5-mana 4/4 trampler, and of course, when it enters the battlefield, it can distribute up to 4 +1/+1 counters among any number of target creatures you control. So again, with our strategy getting +1/+1 counters, trying to go big, Virtuous Gearhulk is a great way of doing that as far as putting out 4 counters on other merfolks or putting it on himself, making him an 8/8, stuff like that as well. Virtuous Gearhulk is a bomb, you don't need me to tell you that, and it's going to win you a game if it comes down and is not dealt with quickly. But that is it for creatures. We have 26 in total because this is a tribal deck. But moving on to spells, we have 11 in total. We're moving up to 3 Blossoming Defense. We have a 1-mana target creature you control gets +2/+2 and gains hexproof until end of turn. So this is going to be a card that's going to be mostly spent on Herald of Secret Streams to make sure that it survives at least a turn so you can get in for some unblockable win con damage. Blossoming Defense is also a great way to trade up for a creature. I know a lot of the dinosaurs now are going to be really huge against the merfolk, so we can either get under them through unblockable or through speed, or we can try and trade up with Blossoming Defense, and I think that's great. The next 2 cards is Opt. Opt is a fantastic way of cycling through your deck. Scry 1, draw a card. It's super good. It's going to be one of those cards you're going to play at the end of your opponent's turn. Look at the top of your deck, say, okay, do I want this? I draw it, and then I draw an extra card when my turn begins. So Opt is great for that, and I don't think you need me to tell you that it's probably going to be in Modern a lot, and I think it's going to be really great in Standard in a lot of like slower control formats as well as fast formats like this with the Simic Merfolk strategy. So Opt is great for lining up your plays. And moving on from that, since we're attacking out basically every turn, we're going to have 2 Chart a Course. This is a 2-mana draw 2 card spell. Amazing. Draw 2 cards, then discard a card unless you attacked with the creature this turn. Chart a Course is ridiculous. It's raid, draw 2 cards. Since we have cards like River Sneak that can be straight up unblockable, or things we can make our creatures unblockable, Chart a Course is going to be basically a 2-mana draw 2 cards every time we play it. I think in every aggressive strategy right now, if it's going to be running blue, Chart a Course is probably going to be in the deck. So Chart a Course is fantastic. I would always run it in a deck like this. It's going to be aggressive, trying to basically play out your entire hand as quickly as possible. Chart a Course is ridiculous. And the last 4 cards in the spell slot is Supreme Will. This is 3-mana instant. Choose 1, counter target spell unless its controller plays 3 colorless, or look at the top 4 cards of your library, put 1 of them into your hand, and the rest in the bottom of your library in any order. Because this is blue, you know that I wouldn't leave this deck out without any kind of main board counter cards. Supreme Will is going to be countering out all of those dinosaurs game 1, making sure you can filter through your deck if you're running high on lands or high on creatures and need some lands. And it's definitely on curve to be able to hold up on that turn 3 or 4 to make sure we can get our creatures getting in so they don't die to like a Settle the Wreckage or some kind of board wipe card, something like that. Supreme Will is fantastic for that. While it's not a complete straight up hard counter, Supreme Will is going to counter more cards than you actually think. But that is it for the rest of the cards besides land, so let's go over the land real quick. We have 4 Botanical Sanctum. You know it's going to be in the deck. It's going to be basically your fast land. It's going to come in and tap for green and blue mana, and in the mid to late game, of course, it's going to come in tapped, which is sad, but we're all about aggression, so we need to get this out as soon as possible. Next up, we have 3 Hashep Oasis. This is a card that's going to be sacrificed, give +3/+3 to one of our unblockable merfolk, get in for points of damage, get in for the win condition swing. Hashep Oasis is something you definitely don't want to overlook. Paying 1 life for 1 green mana is also an okay trade up for what the secondary ability is as well, so I think that's fine. Moving on from this, we have 1 Scavenger Grounds. Again, don't leave home without any kind of graveyard hate, so God Pharaoh's Gifts and any kind of Eternalize or Embalm, all that kind of stuff. Scavenger Ground is going to be dealing with that. And the last 4 basic lands, we have 4 Unclaimed Territory. So basically, we're going to choose a creature type when it enters the battlefield. We can tap for colorless if we need to, but we can add 1 mana of any color to your mana pool and spin it on mana of a creature type. So it's basically going to be merfolk for us, so green or blue. So that's really, really good, especially in a creature heavy strategy like this one. And the last 11 cards in the deck, we have 5 Island and 6 Forest. And that is the full 60 of the main board. Now, one of the things that I keep running into with Simic is that there's not a lot of really great removal in the format, especially for a aggressive strategy like this deck. So we're really looking at our spells to make sure we can either counter stuff with Supreme Will, either trade with Blossoming Defense, or maybe just go fast enough that we can kind of get under and get our strategy out before they stabilize and before they have a win condition of their own. The sideboard strategy I have set up is kind of combat that, as well as combat some other slower strategies in the format that have a lot of heavy removal. So let's go over that real quick. First up in the sideboard, we have 2 Descender's Deliverance. It's a 2-mana instant, destroy target artifact, and you can cycle it for 1 green mana. So artifacts are a pain in the butt to deal with right now, and Descender's Deliverance helps us deal with them pretty well, and we can cycle away for 1 green mana if we need to. Moving on from that, we have Essence Scatter. This is going to be getting rid of some of the heavy dinosaur creatures in the set, as well as other creatures like Virtuous Gearhulk, things like that when they come down, they're really a pain to deal with. If we're up against a strategy like that, we definitely want to use Essence Scatter. Moving on from that, we have 2 Heroic Intervention. Now, this does not protect our creatures from a Settle the Wreckage in white, but it does protect them from a board wipe spell or any kind of spell where it's giving them like points of damage like a Sweltering Suns, things like that. Of course, if we're worried about spot removal as well, Heroic Intervention also gives our entire board hexproof too, so that's always great. Indestructible and hexproof for 2 mana. You can't ask for anything more than that. And moving on from Heroic Intervention, we have Negate. This is going to deal with some of the heavy removal that's in the format. So Negate's going to be coming in if we're dying to Fatal Push a lot or any kind of burn spell, lightning strike, things like that. Negate's going to come in to definitely try and deal with that. Next up, we have 2 Sorcerer's Spyglass. This is our Peaking Pithing Needle. This is going to be a great card to lock down any kind of strategy we don't like in game 2 that perhaps did this in game 1. So Pithing Needle with a Peak is awesome, and Sorcerer Spyglass is definitely a 2 of in most of my sideboards right now until I see otherwise, so I love it. Moving from this, we actually have an interesting card, Crushing Canopy for 2. It's a 3-mana instant. Choose one, destroy target creature with flying, and destroy target enchantment. So the reason this is in the deck, there's basically 2 reasons. So we have Enchantment Hate, which we really need, so that's really great. Well, we also have Flying Creature Hate. And one of the cards that definitely goes unanswered in the blue-green if we don't have a counterspell to it is Glorybringer. So I think Crushing Canopy is a great way to deal with Glorybringer, especially if they have a Glorybringer coming out in the mid to late game. So it's definitely one of those cards that's like, it's interesting. It may not even look like it's a card to be put into a standard deck, but because Glorybringer is such a headache to deal with in standard meta right now, I just think it's great. If it just did destroy target creature with a flying, it wouldn't be in the deck, but because it does destroy target creature or destroy target enchantment, I think that's fantastic. And moving on from Crushing Canopy, we have 2 anti-control cards. We have 2 Carnage Tyrants in the deck. This is a 6-mana 7/6, can't be countered, trample, and hexproof. This is one of the cards that makes the deck actually more expensive than it should be. If you take this out of the deck, it's probably gonna be half the price of what it actually is right now because Carnage Tyrant is just insane, but I couldn't help but put 2 into the deck because Control is gonna be such a hard deck to deal with in the standard meta. So Carnage Tyrant is amazing, and even though it's not a Merfolk, I still love it. It's gonna be ridiculously powerful in game 2 if you're up against a control strategy. And the last card in the deck, we have 1 Commit to Memory. Of course, Commit is gonna bounce a card they're casting to the second card from the top. And remember, he's actually gonna cycle our cards from our graveyard to our deck and draw 7 new cards. So it's a great anti-mill strategy. And I know some of you guys out there are probably wanting, or begging rather, to have a new mill deck coming out soon. And I will definitely do a deck on it in the future. But Memory is here basically for a good bounce card for the end of the game and some decent anti-mill strategy. So I think that's fine. Memory can also be coming in as well to deal with a Godfrey's Gift strategy too, if it's going into the mid or late game and you're not getting your Scavenger Grounds out early enough. I think this card is fantastic, and it's going to be always a one of, probably whenever I have blue. But that is the full deck. I have the layout right here for you guys so you can see all of it. I really like this deck. It's super aggressive, it's super low to the ground, and it can win really quickly. So it gets really large really quickly, it draws a lot of cards really fast, and it can do a ton of damage turn over turn without your opponents really having anything to deal with it. I like it a ton, but let me know what you think. Do you like it? Do you hate it? Do you have some tweaks for it? Let me know in the comments below. Like the video if you liked it, and of course subscribe to the channel for more content like this in the future, and hit that little bell to make sure you know when we upload a video or when we go streaming. So I appreciate it, guys, and I'll see you guys in the next video.